Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Juan Cotto touching bases with you live from the we're in our own studios. Mick Hoffman, how are you, my friend?
Doing well. How about you?
Doing very well. Thank you very much. My son said he had a great time seeing you at the visit last month. Didn't get a chance to go down and say hi, but he really enjoyed the presentation from the WIAA. I guess I can brag a little bit. As O'Day was awarded the 3A state football championship, but they weren't awarded. They actually won it over a very, very game Bellevue squad. Mick, good to see you again.
Good to see you. Yeah, no, that's fun. We don't often get invited out to do things like that, so when we get a chance to go celebrate with students in the community, it's a good time.
How is it to make those presentations? You say you don't get invited out often, but when you get a chance to connect with the students who have earned those state championships, how is that for you and for people like Andy Barnes and the rest of the WIAA administrators?
Yeah, no, it's fun to go out and see how different. I mean, our membership is so incredibly diverse. So one, getting to go out and see it in action, and especially when they invite community in like that, that's fun. But even more so, we talk all the time about the value of education base, and you work hard and you get these different rewards. And when you reach the ultimate, as far as the competitive side of winning a state championship, it's pretty fun to see people get excited and see somebody like Monty, who's pretty stoic most of the time, be a little emotional and excited. That lets you know how much it means to people to have that opportunity, and listen to those kids' stories was really an awesome day.
Mick, I felt that several of our O-Day people, and I'll say that with the biggest word, I guess, that I can give you. I felt that they kind of over-celebrated the championship, and there were some comments made about Bellevue, and I took the liberty of writing a note in Facebook because I know how hard all the schools worked. Yeah. All of our opponents during the season, you starting with Graham Kapowson all the way to Bellevue. And I put just a thing out there, just said, we as parents, we realize how much the families put into this. And the only reason that a championship is special is by all of the work that they put in. And it was addressed to the parents of all of the teams that we competed against. And I could not believe the responses I got back. Several people had forwarded out, and I got a call from my wife at work about 10 days later, and she said it went viral. And we were both receiving a variety of different notes. I heard from several Bellevue parents thanking me for that particular email. The head football coach at Mercer Island thanked me for that, and a number of different coaches and administrators and parents really appreciated it. It really made me remember, as a former coach, and I know you go through that as well, it's not just about winning a championship. It really is the journey and everything that parents go through and the participants go through in the pursuit of excellence. And the only reason why it means something is that we all go through it. And this year we were fortunate enough to win. But I was just wondering your thoughts on all that parents go through during football season.
Yeah, I mean, it really spans all sports and activities. We got state cheer coming up this weekend, and there's going to be some nervous parents in the stands. You watch them; they're doing the moves with their kids as they're out on the mat. So, yeah, it's definitely a family experience, and I really appreciate. One, I'm not a big social media guy, so
probably better you're not.
Trust me, there's a reason I don't go trolling on there. Believe it or not, there's a lot of people who misunderstand WI and even me and aren't fans. So I get beat up enough. I don't need to go looking for it. That being said, I'd love to see what you wrote and actually be able to utilize it, because we get to go out and to quite a few leagues and regions around the state are doing more and more around sportsmanship. And one of my messages I always deliver to kids especially is, do you have to tear people down to build yourself up?
Right.
And, what you're talking about is, why do you have to, you and I might use a different term, but bad talk your opponents that you've already beat? Like, what? Why? Like, you won. You're the champion. Focus on what we accomplished, how we did it, what this does for us. We don't need to continue to push people down to build ourselves up at that point. I think that's a really important point. I appreciate you bringing that to people's attention, because it's become so normalized. A lot of people don't even realize it when they're doing it anymore.
The other thing, and you mentioned him earlier, Coach Amani Kohler, and all he's accomplished. I mean, the number one coaching football, high school football, for 40 years is the number one accomplishment. Let's forget about the wins and losses and the records and so forth. To do this for 40 years is a remarkable achievement in itself as a human achievement, because the job has changed so much over the last 4 decades. I was amazed to hear, because sometimes being at O'Day, we hear all of the comments about the school, and we're an athletic school and so forth, and then winning isn't everything, but Mick, I could not believe how much respect O'Day has from the Metro League, and also from the schools throughout Western Washington, and that was very special to me. Coach Kohler in particular has set a very high bar, and it was amazing to hear how much respect that he has for that.
Yeah, I know, exactly. And we talk about culture a lot, and like, what exactly is culture? You bring in a meal from that country, or you do your poster board and you put the flag on there. But when we talk about culture of programs, kind of what are those norms? What are the norms of the community? And I was at another school district a couple of years ago, and they were really struggling with behavior in their teams and their fans. And matter of fact, and they've had some pretty horrific situations internally competing against their own schools. And so it was a really bad culture. And when we sat in there, and there was another group working with them, they asked me to join in. And one of the adults speaking, interesting, most of the conversations at tables as they were answering questions dominated by the adults, not the kids. Mm-hmm. We know kids have most of the solutions, right?
They do.
But the adults are dominating. And when they reported out, the adults were reporting. And one of them, who was a coach there, said, well, people just don't like us because we win so much. And you know me well enough now, like, I couldn't hold back. And so when we got, everybody kind of did the report out. And one of the comments I made was, I don't think it's necessary. I give out a lot of trophies individually, and our board gives out a gazillion of them during the year, right? I mean, 100 trophies with medals, and that we give out literally hundreds over the course of the year. I said, we don't give out a whole lot to the schools in this district, right? So you may win a lot locally, but why can't you compete against the best outside? I said, I will tell you that my humble opinion on this is, it's not that you win, it's when you win, how you win, how you handle yourself, how you treat others. And their superintendent was very appreciative of that message, because she's really trying to change that culture. And O'Day's a great example. You watch your crowd. You guys have a rowdy crowd, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, they get after it. They're supportive, but they're not cheering at the other team. They're cheering. Now, sometimes it gets a little bit there, but you have adults there who realign that energy. Your teams aren't on the field showing people up overtly. Like, that's not what's happening. And so, Linden Christian's another great example of that. We hand them a lot of trophies, and people don't, they want to compete against Linden Christian because they want to beat the best. They don't want to beat them because of how they act. And I think O'Day's built that same culture. Like, there's expectations, call it what you want. There's expectations that are consistent from one year to another. Having leadership like Monty and some of the other coaches that have been there for a while, make that happen. And so yeah, people want to beat you, but they want to beat you because you're considered one of the best year in and year out.
Well, we really appreciate the WIAA. Speaking as a parent, thanks for coming up and celebrating the championship with the kids. And it was there are still a number of us who are still on cloud nine and everything that comes with that. And obviously, once again, to the people, and I will definitely send you that letter after the show today. I want you to take a look at that. But we really do appreciate, and I do believe I'm speaking for myself, but also for probably for the parents at our school. We really do appreciate all that goes into it, all of our opponents, and we respect them. And the reason why it is special is because they take it serious and they put their effort and time and energy into it, and the coaches and the parents and the participants and the cheerleaders and the band members. That ultimately is what makes a championship special. So thanks for all you guys did for that. This is Mick Hoffman. He is the executive director of the Washington State Interscholastic Activities Association, and you've seen us here for the last couple of years on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world. I am Juan Cotto, and yes, Mick, you probably haven't experienced this yet because you're still a young guy. I am a slave to the fact that my vision is just getting a little bit more blurry. So at times I will actually, wear two pairs of glasses, and these ones actually let me see the screen incredibly clear. So I know that it may distort my vision. I hope you can see into my soul and see my eyes, both Mick and the audience. I'll try to open my eyes wide, but sure does allow me to see what's going on here. But that's just one of the cool things about the clock, the calendar moving on me. A couple of different things I'd like to share with you. Number one, tonight at 5:30, we are going to have a debate, and this is just really something that's really cool, ladies and gentlemen. Tony B and Rainier Avenue Radio is going to be hosting the City Council Position 2 seat live from the Columbia City Theater. And I am so proud of Rainier Avenue Radio. I'm so proud of Tony B. The City Club has reached out to him. This debate will be, and I don't want to call it a debate, but it'll be an interview process on the candidates that are still available for the vacant city council position. Tammy Morales stepped down. She made the announcement that she was stepping down last month. Just really a situation where she was just ready to get out of that position. We know how difficult politics is. We know how difficult coaching teams can be. And we have 8 people in the community who've stepped up, thank goodness, that want the position. Tony B will interview them tonight at 5:30. Please tune in because it will give you an opportunity to see who will be representing you at a very, very important time on the Seattle City Council. Excuse me, Friday night on Rainier Avenue Radio at 8:30. Excuse me, the Seattle Prep Panthers will be taking on the number 1 ranked Rainier Beach Vikings. Rainier Beach is back. They are sitting on top of the polls in the pantheon of 3A basketball in Washington State, and Max Preps has them ranked as the number 1 team in the state of Washington. And obviously, basketball is better when Rainier Beach is good, in my opinion, and they are good this year. Should be a very exciting contest. And obviously, Seattle Prep has come back, and they are ranked in the top 10 in the state of Washington. And when Seattle schools get together, and they are ranked high, you're going to see a very, very special performance, and that will be 8:30 Friday night, and I hope you tune in for that broadcast. Next month, from February 1st to the 28th, come by the Columbia City Theater for the annual Call to Conscience Black History Month Museum. And we all know that Tony puts on a very special program all throughout the month of February. Black History Month is not just a month that's celebrated in February. It's actually celebrated all year round at the Columbia City Theater. But this is one where Tony brings emphasis, and you'll see a variety of different exhibits from the Seattle Black Panther Party, the Quincy Jones Memorial Exhibit. unfortunately, we lost Mr. Jones within the last 3 months. But this is going to be an opportunity to really go back and take a look at his incredible career and the impact that he had on this area. The Black Firefighters Association, the history of African immigration to Seattle, and I'm sure that Tony will stretch that out to no end. So 28 days of real good education and opportunity to learn. Please take the time to stop by the Columbia City Theater and come take a look at some of the history that Tony will be putting together. Mick, today we are going to talk about, and we're going to continue on this theme for Martin Luther King Day. And we are going to talk about really yesterday up at Garfield High School. Tony B, Daniel Ballas, and I, we were there. We had a chance to see the celebration, the 42nd year that our communities put on that celebration up at Garfield High School. So there was a march, and that was well documented in the media yesterday. Very, very, very powerful speakers. And I don't even know how to describe the times in American politics anymore. I don't say it's called uncertain. I don't want to over describe what is going on in our country right now. I feel that our country is so strong that you have the ability to handle this, and also I'm very, very fortunate, Mick. I have friends who are all over the political spectrum. My best friend in college was extremely conservative, and he's very, very happy this week. And I have friends obviously here in Seattle who are somewhat disappointed and delusioned, but for my children and my family, I'm going to tell them we're going to get our education. We are going to be resolute, and we're going to stand up, and we're going to take our place in society and make sure that we represent ourselves to serve our communities. And I think that's what we do in every single administration. And certainly Martin Luther King Day brought a variety of different emotions, and we had the inauguration of President Trump yesterday. And I know that there's just so much of, like I said, the political spectrums, but the bottom line issue is we have to support our communities. The WIAA has a responsibility to do that. And I'm just wondering for what is your vision? And I don't want to ask you a political question. Don't mean for this to be political, and I'll bring you on my political talk show if we want to talk politics. But I want to talk about how the WIAA can use Martin Luther King Day to promote equity, inclusion, social justice within Washington State's interscholastic activities.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize that WI is one of the few state associations that's a come one, come all, which really aligns with that whole philosophy Dr. King and led across the country and continues to bring value to our community. So we, from public to private, a lot of places that are split. We serve middle schools. We have a very, we serve transgender students. So a lot of entities around the country have quit serving everybody and have specialized in WI. We've chosen not to do that as a membership. And I think that first and foremost, that needs to be recognized by others out there. Secondly is that, we're really making a hard push on sportsmanship. And so, if you look at Dr. King with nonviolence and, compete hard, push hard, make change, but do it in a nonviolent way. And so we offer that opportunity. We also, by doing athletics and activities, we're more than just an athletic group. And so, again, being more inclusive than exclusive, which is really the goal. And some of our amendments that you see out there that at least come from our board are trying to add more opportunities rather than less. And, membership has a say in that. They get a vote on them. And number two is we have some amendments that would limit action or access for some. So I think that's one way that the WI, I take a lot of pride in being a part of an organization that is open-minded to come one, come all, and we'll find a way. And with that, it creates the opportunity for different communities to meet and compete and learn about each other. And I think that's another thing that we do really well, whether it's our LEAP group, our student leadership, where we're actually trying to help support the creation of leaders. We're very intentional in who we pick to have a well-represented group of young people of our membership, 16 of them, and do some intentional training with them. Our board is very intentional on continuing to grow professionally. So we work with shirts across America. So I think there's a lot of different ways we do that. Some of the functional ways is Martin Luther King Day. You mentioned one tournament, ShowWare hosted one. There's a lot of communities that host Martin Luther King Day events where they'll bring anywhere from 8 to 16 teams together, again, bringing community. And so that market's pretty saturated as far as running a tournament on that day. But that being said, it's a great opportunity. So what our membership has done is we've given the opportunity to do what we call a foundation game, an additional game. So people who have maxed out schedules can still participate in events like an MLK Day event, or if there's another significant event that they would want to play that 21st basketball game during the course of the season.
Mick, I want to go back to the nonviolence, and it's something that you and I have discussed before. I'm pulling this out of my own list of questions because you triggered something for me. I admittedly to you, and admittedly to the audience, and admittedly to Daniel, I spend way too much time on social media, and I've got to stop scrolling, and I've got a note right here on my computer, Juan, stop scrolling, and that's a trend. But I scrolled across another unfortunate situation in our country a couple of months ago. Another young coach was shot by a parent, and they were in stable condition, and I can't remember what part of the country that was in. And then obviously that generated some comments in the thread, and I know that a lot of parents are. They just seem to be a little bit, and I think you and I saw it when we were coaching. I started to get onto the tail end of it. I know that coaches. So, sometimes we started to see that, at least when I stopped back about 10, 12 years ago, parents who are sending their kids to special trainers, making a major investment into their kids' athletics, and money that would probably be better spent, in my humble opinion. And yes, this is a statement from Juan Cotto. Why don't you invest your money into Kathy Art's set of mutual funds and put it there? But nevertheless, people are spending an awful lot of money on their kids. I mean, up to $1,400, $1,500 a month seeing special trainers. And then when they don't get the playing time they get extremely upset with the coaches. And, I look at some of the frustration that goes along with that as we are trying to provide this educational opportunity to kids in particular. How can we ensure that we are protecting our coaches? And you and I've talked about this before. How can we ensure that we are protecting our coaches from, maybe this is getting worse, or maybe it was just as worse 20 years ago. We just didn't hear about it. But it seems like there's more of these types of incidents creeping up.
Yeah, we definitely hear about more overt threats, even litigation against coaches where, who would have thought coaches have to go out and get extra insurance to protect themselves against lawsuits for not giving students the opportunity to play. So it is very unfortunate. And I guess what we can do is, we need to make sure that people don't assume any threats an idle threat, take them serious, report them, address it. Honestly, in some cases, it's not always the answer, but at a minimum, restrict parents' access to competitions. And in some cases, they're going to cost their students opportunity because schools or programs are going to say, you know what, we love the kid, but we can't deal with the parent, and the parent will not stand down. You just need to remove the whole thing. Now, it doesn't prevent them from doing something very irrational out in the parking lot or somewhere else. But yeah, I don't know how it ends. I know there's more legislation coming out in Olympia specific to officials and game workers this time. There's already laws and felonies for assaulting a coach. We're starting to see lawsuits settled for defamation of people saying things about coaches that they can't prove. So yeah, it's unfortunate. And what I sure hope, it looks like the college ranks, eventually everything but football and basketball are going to be club sports. Mm-hmm. I hope that parents and those that are being selfish and irrational don't lead our school administrators and school boards to make decisions around that for education-based athletics, because you talk about King's dream and goal of community. If that happens, the most talented and the wealthy get to play, and everybody else, like me, I would have been left out as a high school kid. So
I think that's one of the biggest concerns in the inner city right now that we face. I mean, you have these select teams, and obviously we've talked about my son's participation in baseball and the money that goes along with that. But I know that some of these travel club basketball teams and some of the, once again, the training and 7-on-7 for football and even girls softball and some of the participation in the girls sports, it's getting more and more expensive. And I think it's shutting out a lot of kids where sports used to be that safe place where we could all go to learn from a positive person in the community and coach us up on a variety of different things, not only the sport, but how to behave and how to function on a team. And it's almost like some of that's being taken away right now.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk Seattle. $100 million deficit. Is that what I'm hearing? I think for Seattle Public Schools, they got to close the gap. They're talking about closing schools. I mean, what if all of a sudden they don't get state funding for athletics, right? So, okay, turn it over to Seattle Rotary and some others. The best players still get to play. The kids who can help pay for that get to play, but there's thousands of students that now don't get to play. So we can't just assume that this is going to be there for kids for the next 15, 20 years. If it becomes so much work that schools are having to not only hire a bunch of attorneys to deal with unrealistic expectations, but just having to take up principal time, deal with parents because they're mad their student made the C squad team rather than the JV team, or played 2 innings rather than being the starting pitcher. Like, we push that too much, and it becomes not only expensive to run the programs, but it becomes a resource issue of people's time, and we lose that. Those students that are doing that complaining, they now have no place to play. And that's a travesty. All the lessons that we learned, the things that help get me to this job, get you to your job and what you do, kids miss out on that opportunity, and then what do they do with their time? And if you don't think it's an issue turning all those students loose with nothing to look forward to, I feel terrible for those kids, and I feel terrible for those communities. So that's really what we need to do a better job of lifting that message up. Like that could happen.
Daniel, this is the last question before break. Mick, I'm going to give you 60 seconds to go ahead, and I want you to paint a mosaic here, and you are so articulate, and you really paint a vision as most leaders do, but you do it in an incredibly special way. What role do you believe student athletes and coaches can play in honoring Dr. King's legacy through their involvement in sports and other extracurricular activities? 45 seconds.
Yeah, I say first, compete without fear. He led without fear. There's times he's scared, but he wasn't fearful. I would say respect your opponent. He was always respectful of others. He wasn't afraid from them. He'd go after them. He'd compete with them. And I would say refrain from violence. Don't meet violence with violence. Don't drop your expectation of yourself to meet your opponent's expectation. Raise your opponent up. And I think those are the ways that we can honor Dr. King the best.
He is Mick Hoffman. He is the executive director of the Washington Interscholastic Activities Association, and he's here today on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world. We will go to break, and when we come back, we will continue to talk about the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King.
Juan, can you hear me by chance?
Rainier Avenue Radio.
Yes. Hello?
Rainier Avenue Radio.
This is a Rainier Avenue Radio message on fentanyl awareness in our communities. So I bring a perspective of a parent who wants to protect the children and the children that live in the community. There's Narcan in elementary school. And I knew that because I was told if you can work in an elementary school, you'll be trained to administer Narcan properly. Elementary school children who may come in with an overdose, and that you as a staff member in an elementary school would need to be able to respond to that. It's my responsibility to be more aware if they do come to me with questions. But if I go to my school website, I don't know if I would be able to give them a sufficient answer.
This has been a Rainier Avenue radio message on fentanyl in our communities.
Hey, community, listen to New Hope Missionary Baptist Church every Sunday, 10:45 a.m.
We invite you to get up and call a friend and tell them that New Hope is on live. This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Now, our pastor, the Reverend Dr. Robert L. Jeffrey Sr.
Everybody clap your hand, come on.
Listen to New Hope Missionary Baptist Church every Sunday, 10:45 a.m.
Do you want to reach out to the Vietnamese community in Seattle? Just advertise in Le Viet Bắc, that is Northwest Vietnamese News, the longest running Vietnamese language newspaper in our region. Go to nvnorthwest.com.
Women Empowerment Talk Radio, your roadmap to business success. Tune in every Sunday at 3 p.m. on Rainier Avenue Radio.world, providing resources and sharing motivational experiences from the everyday entrepreneur. Tune in Women Empowerment Talk Radio every Sunday, 3 p.m. on Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
Yo, what's going on? It's the world famous DJ B Mello. You are tuned in to Rainier Avenue Radio. Let's go. Make sure you go help DJ Nasty Ness pay for his hospital bills by going to his GoFundMe. It's Support Nasty Ness Rodriguez's Road to Recovery. GoFundMe.com.
This is Paul Pearson, host of Star Time. And when I'm not helping bad girls set up their websites, I'm listening to Rainier Avenue Radio.world.
Welcome back to your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world. Mick Hoffman, the executive director of the Washington Interscholastic Activities Association, and Juan Cotto, Rainier Avenue Radio host and personality. Excuse me, with just a little touch of a cold. Tonight at 5:30, hold on a second here. Tonight at 5:30, tune in to our coverage of the Seattle City Council Forum. Once again, my hat's off to Tony B for doing this. We don't sometimes we don't get the recognition. Sometimes we don't get awards, and I'm glad Tony really doesn't chase all that kind of stuff. But we're doing some great things in the community, and this is certainly one of them. And it really recognizes the reach that Rainier Avenue Radio has. The City Club has reached out, and we will do a public forum tonight on the Seattle City Council candidates for district position number 2, Tammy Morales' position. And there are 8 candidates still eligible for this position, and Tony will be speaking to them tonight in an important time for the Seattle City Council. So, Tony, my hat's off to you, and we hope this is a great program. Please tune in to learn more about these candidates, and you can probably ask questions. The high school boys basketball live on Friday night, Rainier Avenue Radio. The number 7 Seattle Prep Panthers taking on the number 1 Rainier Beach Vikings, and those rankings are from Max Preps. But nevertheless, we know in the city of Seattle that and look at Seattle Prep's ranking is climbing. They are now number 6 right before our very eyes. So we're seeing the voters move this to an even bigger matchup, and we're really excited about that to have it. And just going to be an exciting ball game. We hope that you will be in attendance at the ball game. It's always so exciting to get out and go watch one of these games. But if you're not, just throw on your big screen TV and attach it to Rainier Avenue Radio, and you can go ahead and see this game in living color and in crystal clear. It's such a good and exciting opportunity for you to see high school basketball in the city of Seattle. Then, of course, next month from February 1st to the 28th, the Columbia City Theater, the annual Call to Conscious Black History Month Museum. Find out more about this month's exhibits. And if you are looking for something to do to celebrate Black History Month, if you are looking to really sit down and if you are parents who are looking for something to really raise awareness with your own children, this is a marvelous opportunity. Tony does a first-class job every year, and you will be amazed by how much information and what you will learn in such a short period of time in a wonderful exhibit that he does. So we're really excited about this. Have any questions, call 206-290-9685 for more information and tickets. But you will definitely have an experience of a lifetime, and your family will if you come by and take a look at that. So we encourage you to do that. Mick, how can the WIAA encourage schools to use Martin Luther King Day as more than just a day off, but a day to reflect and take action on the issues of social justice and community service that we've been talking about?
I think a lot of our schools do a pretty good job of this already, in that, like the events we've discussed, and what they share at those events, and using that time when we have a captured audience. And it's actually probably one of the very few times that we use sport to really reach into our community to message. I keep saying that, I was guilty of this when I was in schools, underutilized tool, promoting levies, bonds, other topics. But schools have done a much better job of that. They use their social media very effectively to also highlight that throughout the MLK holiday and throughout February. So I think those are two of them. Also, I think it's, really just kind of stating his message and his purpose, and what he did was, to be open to others, to work for understanding, try to find a way to make each person's experience better and raise those up, give everybody an opportunity and not just focus on the elite. And I believe our schools do a much better job of that than what we've traditionally done, throughout our history. And so I think those are the biggest one, is to really understand his message, and then to continue to find ways to reiterate that, make it tangible to young people to continue that dream.
I had the opportunity last Friday. I was the MLK speaker at John F. Kennedy High School, and I had an opportunity to tell the kids how envious I was of them. I wanted to go to JFK myself and had plans to take the entrance exam for John F. Kennedy. It was a brand new school when I was young, and that was a while ago. When I was young, JFK was only about a decade old, and we played some of our CYO sports there, Mick, and got a chance to view that, and had gone to St. Paul's School out in the South End. Ended up, my mom on the night of the entrance exam told me that she wanted me to go to O'Day. She grew up in the central area and wanted her oldest son to go to O'Day, and that turned out to be a marvelous experience for me, and one that I do not regret, and Mom sort of knows best. However, I had so much respect for John F. Kennedy High School, and to speak to the students, what amazed me was, number one, their intent and their intention to the entire, and I spoke for about 15 minutes. I wanted to keep it short for them. But Mick, you hit it. The kids see Martin Luther King a little differently now. Certainly the legacy and the legend has grown over the last 5 decades, but also the kids afterwards came up and they asked a lot of questions, and it was kind of cool to hear their thoughts. But the values and the opportunity stressed by Dr. King, the kids really want to look at ways that they can support their community. And I thought that was just a real interesting look at how this younger generation, and sometimes they get maligned and comments made about them. They are passionate about their community, and they are looking for ways to be motivated to make the community better.
Yeah, and I mean, and essentially that gets to the heart of his message. I know when I was a school administrator, you do the speech, I have a dream, and like, how much are we really teaching behind that? And I think I shared with you last spring, I had the opportunity with Shirts Across America to do a 5-day trip. We started in Atlanta at Dr. King's Memorial and Museum, and we're able to, receive some education there before going on to Montgomery, and then eventually down to the Whitney Plantation and New Orleans, and to hear, that he grew up middle class, and because he saw that when his family was given the opportunity for resources, financial stability, what they were able then to do for their community and how open he was. And we got to meet with some of the individuals who actually worked for him and worked with him that are still alive today. And one of the things that surprised me at lunch one day is Bob Zellner and Mr. Patterson Jr., they were talking about how shortly before their assassination, Malcolm X had come back from Mecca, and him and Dr. King were talking on a regular basis about uniting their cause, that Malcolm X had decided that there was more of a middle ground, and Malcolm and Dr. King had decided maybe he needed to be a little more forceful with his message. Now, again, I've never read this in a history book. This came from gentlemen who actually were there when he did his speech. Interesting side note, George Raveling actually picked up his speech from the up on the stairs, and that what I Have a Dream wasn't his original speech that day. He didn't originally write it. Like, we learned all these things from Randy Novak and Delano, who took us on that trip. So it gave me just a little bit more back. So I think those are things that maybe our schools could do if we can make that more common knowledge. Our history books are limited to what's written in them, but there's so much more to his story to understand his why. And I think that's maybe the next step is, if we understand his why, we can get more students engaged in their community. And if they understand why he believed that was so important, then maybe that develops a little more passion to do that when it's an inconvenience and not, on a holiday. So I think there's so much more to that story that we're learning about today. And as an old history teacher, it's exciting to be able to now know where to go find a little bit of that information.
The last night we saw a spirited game between the Ohio State Buckeyes and the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, and obviously the coach of the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, Coach Marcus, African American, I believe the second African American head football coach at the University of Notre Dame, Tyrone Willingham being the first who actually coached here at the University of Washington. And do you find it somewhat amazing that we still talk about that? Last night, Coach Marcus Freeman was, interviewed, and even up to the days leading to the game, you're the first Black coach in a championship game. Do you find that is that it's amazing that is still news, or how do you feel when you hear questions like that still being asked today?
Yeah, it's kind of jarring when you do. It gives you a sense of, one, how long change takes, especially systemic change, and also how short the history really is. Mm-hmm. For our young people, the 1960s seem like, literally lifetimes ago. And I'm thinking, holy smokes, I was born in the 60s. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not that old, is it? But it gives you an idea of how hard change is, and especially sustainable change. And it's great to highlight and celebrate those firsts and early that's going on. So I think it really needs to be a celebration, and good for him, because he lost that first game, and I don't know if you remember, the media was all over him. I mean, he was under fire right out of the chute, and he persevered, and good for Notre Dame administration leadership staying with him, and now they're playing for a national championship. So it's still jarring at times, especially for those of us in the business doesn't seem to be a big deal. Like, why wouldn't he be a head coach? But to find out he's the first in that game is like, oh, okay, perspective.
Thank you, Daniel, for so much for getting those highlights. That's pretty good, man.
I'm afraid what he'd find on us if he was looking for.
I was going to say, might find some very, very interesting opportunities there. Nice. Thank you so much for that. Let's talk about sports and extracurricular activities serving as platforms to teach people about the values that we have been discussing and certainly coordinated. And you've touched on some of this before in your comments earlier, but about nonviolence and leadership exemplified by Dr. King. These are values that are in so many different aspects of our life, and you hope that they are emphasized by the parents at home. Yeah, obviously, the coaches that I have always competed against and have been coached by and have worked with have always seemed to come up with ways to make sure that these are emphasized to the students they're coaching. But how do you feel that the young people themselves, how do they adhere to these values?
It's interesting. We've had a few really tough situations. I had a conversation today with a young lady who transitioned gender identity from started as a male athlete, transitioned to a female athlete, and so I went and sat down with her today to get her perspective as a competitor in WIAA. And I've done this a few times with students who were singled out for either their ethnicity or where they go to school, that have gotten unwanted attention from others. And to young people's perspective on things is fascinating. When we're going through COVID, we actually had some of our student leaders, our LEAP students, sit in when we're always remote, and they completely changed the direction of conversations and a couple decisions during COVID. And so, I have great faith in our young people. They're more in touch with what's going on. They know what's happening, and they're not as politically motivated in their decisions. They're really pure. Now, they may not have the same long-term vision for how that can play out. And I think that's important when we're making decisions, because when we're always weighing the long-term effects, what's the political effect, what's our career, how does it impact our careers, right? I mean, that's going to weigh in, even if it's subconsciously as adults. And so, students don't have that necessarily, and they're looking at it purely from what's right is right and what's wrong is wrong, and they're far more creative than us. So I think it's important. I think, there's great hope in our young people with what's going on, and those that have grown up in this political divide. I would say that there's probably a much greater chance that they're going to be the generation that gets us closer to, Martin Luther King's vision of America than what anybody else has done, because they've grown up hearing and seeing and existing in a world where it is pretty divided. But there's, at the same time, there's the conversation around how close those divisional gaps, and maybe can find the way to get us to compromise on a better place for everybody, where no one's a full winner and no one's a full loser.
He is Mick Hoffman. He is the executive director of the Washington Interscholastic Activities Association. Their office is down in Renton, and Mick has a beautiful Ford vehicle, and he travels all over the state of Washington, connecting with athletic directors, connecting with school administrators, connecting with our youth, and really not only I joke with him, call him the commissioner of athletics, but he is and also activities, because it's an activities association, not athletics, not just athletics, but a variety of different things. And it's always so wonderful to hear his perspective here on Rainier Avenue Radio. A couple of things I just want to point out to you tonight, 5:30. We have the interview of the the 8 candidates who are still eligible for the vacant Seattle City Council position 2 seat. That is coming up on your community radio station in a little less than 2 hours, and that will be live from the Columbia City Theater. So Tony B, he will be interviewing the candidates, and they will be having a conversation on the important topics of the day and such an important position that we'll be having on our Seattle City Council. High school boys basketball this Friday night on Rainier Avenue Radio, 8:30 p.m. The Seattle Prep Panthers, some polls they're number 7, some polls are number 6, but we do know that Rainier Beach is the number 1 team right now in 3A in the state of Washington, and that's going to be live play-by-play on your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world. And then, of course, next month, starting from February 1st to the 28th, drop by the Columbia City Theater for a awesome opportunity to learn more about Black history in your community. The Call to Conscious Black History Month Museum, February 1st to February 28th. Once again, Black History Month is not only celebrated for a month here at Rainier Avenue Radio. I think that Tony does a great job of doing it all year, but it is emphasized in a variety of different ways. And if you're looking for ways to not only help raise awareness with your family, but also entertain your family, stop by. I think you're really going to enjoy it. Mick, in our last couple of questions that we have here for you, let me challenge you this way. Looking at different ways, are there partnership organizations between the WIAA? Are there community organizations and advocacy groups that could potentially deepen the impact of Martin Luther King Day and the meaning of that whole experience with the WIAA?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's we've started to grow a relationship with Shirts Across America. So they do a lot of that work, right? They really focus on human rights in general, which comes from their core of their organization is around the Dr. King doctrine. And so they're definitely one that we have enhanced this relationship over the last few months. Janae went this fall on that trip as well to learn about their teachings and experience that. So we've had a couple of us go. They want to start doing more work with our student leadership. So there's a lot of potential with that. There's another group that we just signed an agreement with, UISH, that does a lot of work with student motivation around bringing community forward. So yeah, we've identified some good partners. We have others. I mean, even the staff from the Rain, Seattle Rain, is a professional organization that wants to do some work with this. And ideally, if we get the Sonics back here in Seattle, that we would be able to do some stuff in season around MLK Day. And so, we're working to develop relationships and see how we can help each other in a variety of ways. And this is definitely one of them that is on our list.
Looking ahead, and this is always an interesting thing because we want to look at different ways that we can utilize what we're building now and project it into the future and talk about how far that could potentially go. How do you envision the WIAA continuing to evolve its approach to Martin Luther King Day to ensure that it remains relevant and impactful for future generations of student athletes?
Yeah, it aligns perfectly with what we're trying to do with sportsmanship and behavior. And so, one of the things we can do is with some of our partner organizations is really take his teachings beyond just the day and really incorporate it into what we're doing. Ideally, we're going to be out and offer trainings and educational opportunities around the state on an ongoing basis. And so I know our Principals Association is also interested in partnering with us in that. And so if we can do that with the the Association of Washington Student Leaders with their student leadership group, we think we can have a significant impact across the state, helping bring communities together, helping develop young leaders who believe in lifting each other up in the heart of competition. So that's our plan right now. I know you've met Janae on our staff. She's been tasked with that sportsmanship. We have 30 some individuals around the state currently working on one of those groups is a proactive measures to enhance. And this is the type of work that we're trying to complete along with everything else.
Mick, it's interesting. And growing up as an athlete, and a decent athlete at times, like I think like all of us were. But there was something very interesting. I think you know my background as I've shared it with you. I went to Catholic schools, and in some of those schools, we were only, and my brothers and I were only, in our particular classes, the either one or two black kids that were in there. However, it seemed to me that athletics served as sort of an equalizer. The coaches of the CYO teams, we could run a little bit. We loved the game. We weren't bad. Certainly could help the teams win. And I think that tends to be a connection with a lot of young, especially Black and Latino kids, that they see some of the people they watch on television that they can identify with. A lot of the times that we see people who are athletes, and we tend to focus on that, and we play our sports, and there's such an important connection. How do we make sure that we're tying education to that, because I have no qualms with them. My parents were very, very, I don't call them strict, but they certainly did lay down the academic line to make sure that we engage in both. But I know for a lot of students, sometimes to go back to your neighborhood and your community, you have to almost kind of be a part of that. And I'm just wondering, from your perspective, from what you've seen working with young people, how do we tie all of this together? Because sports can be such a powerful motivator and a powerful connection, especially for young people who maybe feel left out at times.
Yeah, you think about those football games at Husky Stadium. People's politics didn't matter at that day. We're all pushed, people in maroon or purple or green or gold, they are all there for a common cause, supporting that group. And I think that's what sports do. Activities do the same thing. That's why I'm so happy we have it, that it's the end result. It's the process of how you get to your best effort. So I think we need to do a better job of continuing to raise that message up and preparing our students to be the ones delivering that message. That's not just the coach in the locker room after the game or at the end of the practice, that it's throughout that entire process. So I think that's what we need to do, is when we talk about building student leaders, like, what is a leader? Is that somebody who tells people, hey, run this play and that's it? No, it's people that people, one, will listen to, and number two, move in a direction and in a way that the leader is expecting them to do. And so we have a huge opportunity to do more with student leadership, which doesn't mean it has to be our best athletes.
Mick, it is always a pleasure to catch up with you. Thank you so much for your time as usual. We want again not only thank the WIAA for this important service that you provide, but also for picking up all of our students and coaches throughout the state of Washington and providing activities which are meaningful to them, to make sure that they're providing an opportunity to connect with important things going on in our community. And certainly the life of Dr. Martin Luther King is one of those. So thank you for your commitment to that.
You bet. Thanks for quarterbacking this, Daniel, for organizing, Tony B for the opportunity, and Ichiro got voted in today.
Yeah, there's big news, and I'm sure we'll be talking about some of those things in the future. So, hey, tonight, 5:30, in an hour and a half, please tune in to the candidates live from your community radio station, Rainier Avenue Radio.world. This is Juan Cotto saying good night, and we will see you in a couple of weeks. Thanks, Mick, and I will talk to you later. Peace.